I think there are 7 minutes left, so I tried in 7 minutes.
Maybe there are some
Okay,
questions.
it's not really a presentation, but I would like to advertise a new book or brochure, however you call it. It's a little bit heavy, but the content is very heavy and good. So it's a brochure on a manual on good practices in small-scale irrigation in the Sahel, which has been established as a support to the national small-scale irrigation program PASIP in Mali by the sector project on sustainable agriculture. We have it in English and in French. It's outside on 2 tables. So what were our selection criteria for good practices? The first one was the time since the first application of the so-called good practice, so the maturity. Second was the extent of application, so the acceptance. The third one was the significant positive impact of the good practice, so the effectiveness. Then for sure the sustainability, and the sixth is the unit cost and economic benefit, so the efficiency. So that were the 5 selection criteria. We selected in Mali a total of 44 good practices, 6 planning practices, 9 engineering practices, 20 economic practices, and 9 in processing and marketing. So what does it mean? I give you some examples here. So planning, one of the good practice was participatory planning of small-scale irrigation schemes. A second one was the use of satellite images and GPS for designing irrigation schemes and others in planning. And then engineering practices, for example, different types of dams to retain water, agronomic practices, system of rice intensification. If you want to know more about it, George, he worked quite a long time specifically on the system of rice intensification. And finally, processing and marketing, storage of perishable products, for example, or the organizing of farmer marketing groups. That are some of the 44 examples for good practices. And now I give you one example in a little bit more detail, that is the rehabilitating of natural water inlets to flood basins. So the discharge of the river Niger it's a Binnen Delta in Mali, very strongly with a declining tendency over the last 10 years. So the former flood basins in the Niger Delta have fallen dry. You can see here, if you can see it, the red ones, the blue is the river in Niger, and the red ones are the flood basins, and they have fallen dry, or water retreats too early for agricultural use. So what was the method of this good practice? It was excavating natural influence to allow Niger water to supply these water basins, and another one was construction of weirs to control return flow from basins and avoid uncontrolled flooding. The third thing was a negotiation of use rights and obligations with the users involved, and the creation of a farmer committee to managing each basin. That was the method applied for this good practice. What about the impacts? Impact was reclamation as well as the extension of cropland and pastures, higher yields of production, the diversification of diets and increase of income, the strengthening of the resilience through stable yields, higher food security and income, and the raising of the groundwater levels and as well as ecosystem benefits. What about the implementation and costs? So 6 basins have been restored in Mali with 33,000 hectares. 190,000 persons were the beneficiaries. The average costs were 450 euro per hectare, and 35% of the cost shared by the beneficiaries in-kind contributions. So the contributing organizations were Ministry of Agriculture in Mali, projects of different agencies, GIZ, KfW, IFPRI, USAID, Helvetes, Intercorporation, Canadian Corporation, and organizations and firms as Africa Vert, Born-Fonden, CES Consulting, Engineer Salzgitter, and AHT Group. So that is one of the 44 examples which you can find in the manual. You can find the manual on 2 tables. If you go out just to the left and another table on the opposite side. You can download as well these brochures on one of our websites, which is called Agri-Waterpedia Info. So if you don't want to carry this brochure, you can download it. And another thing which has nothing to do with this brochure, but somebody asked about gender issues, there's as well a folder with our activities on gender issues just behind the door. So thank you very much for that, and please carry the brochures. We don't want to carry them back to Germany. 6 minutes.